Welcome, loyal listeners, to another episode of Agents Influence Podcast Conversations with me, Jason Cass. And today I have Mr. Winston Smith, who is with Bridge. Now, I really don't know a whole ton about what they do and exactly who Winston is. I mean, I know what they do, so I'm going to leave it up to him. But what I do want to do is take just a couple seconds to remind you about Indie Tech. It's coming up. You need to go to AIindietech.com and come to our event. It was a first time. If you're watching this actually on YouTube, you could see that Winston is holding up actually his badge from going there. He was there at Indie Tech, and it's a one of a kind event. So you go to AI Indie Tech, INDIETECH.com. Be sure to go there and check out. We're going on September 24th to the 26th back in Indianapolis, Indiana. We're going to try to at least double. That was our only downfall, is that we didn't have enough people there, but we had a lot more people than we thought. And I've heard from those who have been there, including Winston. He hasn't told me this, but other people like him have told me there wasn't a ton of people there, but the people that were there were very focused on trying to find technology and where they could have deep, intimate conversations with about to help them try to figure it out. And I really like that. And that's the goal. And so we're going to try to get around 400 agents in this time, almost doubling it. We've got a lot of momentum behind us. A lot of the carriers, everybody has signed up so far and said, hey, I'm coming back as far as a vendor. We're excited about that. We've put together a steering committee of over 50 people that are meeting, that are trying to build the plans, because I'll end with this. This is an industry event. This is not an event for a certain management system. This is not an event for a certain company. This is not an event for a certain individual. This is an event for the independent insurance agents and the technology that powers them to profit. So please join us at AIindietech.com. We're going to be September 24th to the 26th in Indianapolis, Indiana. And you're just going to find out as this year, it's going to be like next to nothing to go. I'm going to test in a theory and an idea that if I can give it away from next to nothing and I can get the vendors to pay the bills, I think the vendors will pay the bills if there's a crap load of people there. So that's the theory that we're going on, rather than trying to charge a lot of money. Winston, thank you very much for allowing me to take a second there in the podcast to talk about that. Winston Smith, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thanks, Jason. Good to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Winston, tell them about you, man. There's a lot of people that go to these shows and movers and shakers and stuff, and you're going to be one of those people. But I think you're kind of newer to this space. I don't even know the solid history. Tell us a little bit about Bridge and then where you came in and how you are to now.
Sure. So I've been running Bridge for about 2 years now. So I'm new to the show. The company had existed. Its previous iteration was called the Cotter Group, founded by a husband and wife team, Adam and Lisa Cotter. Who'd been selling the Bridge product since about 2016. My name's not Cotter. They're not involved in the business anymore. So we're just plain old Bridge. And that's how we're known in the marketplace. So I came from the carrier side. So I spent 10 years on carrier. So I was with Liberty Mutual and Safeco, most recently on their personal line side. And at AIG was beforehand is where I started my career. Engine insurance as well. Okay. So before grad school insurance, after grad school
What were you doing with those carriers?
Yeah. So for AIG, I was an underwriter for professional lines. So D&O, E&O, EPLI, fiduciary, fidelity, that kind of stuff for investment banks, private equity firms, and so on. So I was in the belly of the beast, AIG, from 2009 to 2012. When AIG was on its knees and the financial crisis was happening and banks were blowing up left, right, and center. And we were insuring it. So I got a front row seat to the financial crisis of 2008. So that was a really cool introduction to insurance. Loved it, liked the company, but AIG did 1,000 different things. And I wanted to see what those 1,000 different things were. And at AIG, it's a little siloed. So they're like, here's your ladder. It's D&O, go climb it. And that's when I went to grad school. And I thought I'd love to be able to see the many different things that an insurance company can do. So I joined Liberty Mutual's management trainee program after getting my MBA up in Boston. So I did 2 years rotating through all different parts of the company. They give you executive sponsorship. I had the head of HR was one of my sponsors. Glenn Shapiro, who was formerly the head of Allstate, was another one of my mentors through the program. Got to be domestic, got to work in Brazil internationally. It was a fantastic program. And at the end of it, I was lucky enough to manage P&L. So I managed people in P&Ls for Liberty brand and Safeco brand for the next 4 years after that. So spent a ton of time in the field
Wow.
with agents who I love. I love independent agents. And one thing that sort of resonated with me while going on all these trips out there was Safeco was great. For that particular part of a book that an agent had, which agent didn't want Safeco? Everyone wants an appointment, but they're only good for, if you have a personal lines book, about 1,000 of your 5,000 overall policies. What are you doing for the other 4,000? And that's not something they were ever good at doing, other than saying, where's my new business, and talking more about retention and profit share and blah, blah, blah. So,
That's
I
right.
wanted to be able to find a business that could do something for the whole shebang and not just a portion of their book. So, I went out on my own after Liberty, raised a fund with the goal of trying to go buy a business. And this was the business we ended up buying. And we could serve, the whole book of an agent's business and, help them grow. So Bridge was, for me, a match made in heaven, because it was right in the center of what I really love as an industry, which is insurance, and in particular, independent agencies. And then I could help them solve, problems for their entire book with technology everybody needs. So it's been a fun ride ever since.
Hmm. Hmm. I like this, Winston. I like that. Well, listeners, I hope you listen to that. There's a lot to pull out of that. And the thing that I love to pull out of this, Winston, is like through your journey of AIG and then the Liberty Mutual program, you obviously found a love for agents. I mean, you really truly did, because most people would be bouncing after that, taking their expertise, trying to go somewhere else, maybe moving up in the corporate ladder. But then you decided to show your entrepreneurial spirit. And out of the entrepreneur spirit, you came said, well, I'm going to help agents again, but it didn't have anything to do with what your background was of trying to be consulting with D&O or something. It actually went to a communications platform, which shows and tells me that you felt as if, hey, this can be done. There's room in the market. I can do a better job, or I can do a different, or I have a different thought. And that's interesting. That's interesting, because that shows a lot about you, in my opinion, when I hear things like that. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Am I
No, I
wrong about that?
appreciate you saying that. I love insurance. It's my first love. It always will be. We have a lot of insurance in my household. My wife works in insurance too, actually. She works on the carrier side, but independent agents are amazing, really. They're
Mm-hmm.
amazing salespeople, and they're entrepreneurs that took a product or a process and made it better in their own way, right? By doing it the independent way versus staying captive, or doing something else on the
Mm-hmm.
direct or carrier side. They control a disproportionate amount of U.S. commerce. You got almost $1 trillion
Yes, we
of
do.
premium rolling through the doors every year, which is
Correct.
amazing. And you make commission in the process. So even though we've gone through a terribly hard market recently, and I know there comes trials and tribulations that go with that, the good news is, congratulations, you just raised the low water mark, and you're going to be making commission on that money in your sleep from here till kingdom come, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Carriers, they try and
Right.
rub two pennies together and make three. Agents, that's where the money is.
It is. It is. It is. It is. Yeah, that's really great. Let me ask you this then. Let me ask you, because I don't think that there's a wrong or right answer. I'm just curious. Did you think ever about going agent in your with your entrepreneurial drive that you did here?
So I looked at potentially acquiring agencies, but that was not the right route for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're quite expensive. As you know, there's a lot of multiples out there attached to buying an agency. Uh,
There is.
so that took it off the table. And then number two, there's a little bit of risk with the revenue, because I'm not sure the agency necessarily owns the business. I think the producers actually have a pretty big say on who owns the business there too. So there
Okay.
was some risk
All right.
there. So it would be like, would I be willing to start something from scratch? And if I'm honest with myself, I'm not a 0 to 1 guy. I'm more of a 1 to 2 guy, or if things go well, 1 to 3. That's why I bought an existing business with a proven product market
Gotcha.
fit, and try and optimize and do some of the boring professional, blocking and tackling, if you will, to try and take a business that's already existing and take it from 1 to 2, or, like I said, if things go better, more than that.
Wow. Wow. I like this. I like this. You have a really, really cool mentality on how you're doing that. And I love people. You are full of self-awareness, Winston. you're very self-aware of, like you said to yourself, you said, well, I realized I'm not good at taking something from 0 to 1, right? Some people just will never admit that their whole life, right? They will never admit it. Or sometimes they think that they're good at taking something from 2 to 3, and they may not be. And it's, I hear Gary V said it a long time ago, Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said it like self-awareness is one of the most important things that you can possibly have. And the older I get, I heard him say it 10 years ago, the older I get, it's so true. Like just being aware of who I am and helps me be cool with people who don't know who I am. Right. It's just the way that it is. And, I think this is interesting. There was another guy that actually kind of did an opposite of you, Chuck Blondino from Safeco. He actually used to own a carpet cleaning business, I believe, and then he left and went into Safeco, Liberty Mutual. Anyways, I don't know. I'm getting off there, but just a long history. Well, that is really cool. So tell me exactly their bridge. So tell me, I mean, before you get to what they do, what was it that made you then, after you've decided, I'm not going to go agent, I'm not going to stay where I am, I want to be involved with independent agents? How'd you get steered this way
Yeah.
towards bridge?
So it's interesting. So there was this weird interim period between being on the carrier side and running Bridge. So for 2 years, I ran around like a headless chicken trying to find a business to buy. So I was fortunate enough to have a dozen people or so back me in this sort of quixotic quest to go do that. And my search for a business to buy was really governed by constraints. Where was I credible and relevant? All right, spent 10 years in insurance, so that's probably where I need to play. And what's my cost
Mm-hmm.
of capital? My cost of capital is pretty high. So I need to find a business that's very scalable. And there's no more scalable business than software. It's the most scalable business model there is. So my ideal dream business would be someone that produced a software product that sold it to the insurance industry in one form or another. So that's how I spent my 2 years, very specifically national search, coast to coast, carrier side, broker side, looked at some reinsurance stuff all over the map, and was fortunate enough that during the 2 years I was searching, this business came up as an opportunity. And I was like, this is it. This is my dream business. I know a ton about this stuff, and it satisfies all my criteria, and it's a great business. So the founders wanted to sell. They didn't want to sell to private equity. They wanted to pass it on to another entrepreneur like me. The mechanism with which we purchased this business is similar to private equity, but it's different because we're not looking to build a portfolio. It was to buy one company only, and run it for the long term. So this business was my dream business from that standpoint. So what does Bridge do? We're a customer communications management platform, right? And CRM that integrates with a management system. So you got all the major management systems out there. We integrate with them. We're your phone, we're your text, you're your chat, e-sign, video, sort of a Swiss Army knife of all the different tools that you need to sell professional services in the 21st century. One-stop shop, one pane of glass.
Okay, so what do you mean? You said the video. What's your video like? I mean, you mean people can just use video right on their cell phone, or I mean, is it like a Zoom, but it goes through a bridge? Is that right?
Exactly right. So it's all our own IP, right? So we all developed it ourselves. And the point was to be a substitute for all these massive horizontal solutions that are out there, like RingCentral, HubSpot, DocuSign, Dropbox, Zoom, Loom. We do all of that ourselves, but we make it in one interface that's easy to use and only incorporates the features that an agent needs. So it was streamlined down to an agent's workflow, because some of these tools, while they can sort of move the productivity needle in some regards, from an agent's perspective, they really don't. And they're too much horsepower and they're too expensive. They're complicated to use. Let's make it easy. Let's do it all from one place, both on your desktop and with mobile.
Huh. So you already have the connections to a lot of this stuff, is what you're saying. Do you kind of come in just as a phone system, or can you come in as a package? I'm trying to make that more clear in my brain, Winston.
Yeah. So everyone comes to us for the phone first and foremost, right? It's the mission critical piece of software that every agent needs, right? It's an agent's superpower. When you think about the 800 numbers, the .coms, what separates an insurance agent and why have they continued to thrive in the era of the directs is because of relationships, right? They can get on the phone and actually talk to somebody and know them. So that's the mission critical piece of software that everyone comes to us for and 100% of our customers use. Then we have the package around the phone, which is all the additional features I was telling you about.
Gotcha. Wow. Did not realize that you did all that. I didn't like you mentioned DocuSign. What were those again? Say those again.
Oh, I mean, there's a bunch of them, but we have about
Oh,
12
you have a
different
bunch.
tools.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's Zoom is one of them, Dropbox, DocuSign. We have a substitute for all of those. It's just as good, and it's perfect for agents.
So Winston, were these what how has the business changed since you've taken it over in the last 2 years? What are some of the things and the ideas that Winston you've driven into it?
Sure. So number one is consistency and reliability. So what the founders, Adam and Lisa, were very good at was building something from scratch and building cool stuff that people needed. Because we handle mission critical stuff, it needs to work 99.9% of the time, right? And that's a challenge in tech,
Correct.
as you've probably noticed with different technology that you've adopted over the years. So because
Correct.
they grew very fast, very quickly, we needed to have a period of consolidation and just frankly like hardening, bug squashing. And that's been sort of initiative number one, was to make sure that we had a product that was elite and, in line with the needs of our customers in the 21st century. So that sounds really
Gotcha.
boring. I didn't come here to do the new stuff. It's the boring professionalizing, blocking and tackling, putting in
That's right.
processes, upgrading folks, the unsexy, unglamorous stuff. When you think that, think Winston, right?
But it makes for a solid foundation for growth. So I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
When you
that
think
was the
of that,
first year.
that's
So now, one of the benefit that we have is we're able to bring in fresh capital and people who are able to invest in growth. So that's really one of our advantages versus other small businesses of our size, is we have a lot of capital behind us because of our investors. And then also we have, connections and networks with folks, who work at the highly desirable prospects and customers, not just, from an agent standpoint, but outside of the agency universe standpoint as well. So those are some of the
Winston,
avenues
where are
we're
you guys
pursuing.
headquartered out of?
Just
Where are you
outside
headquartered
Atlanta,
out of?
Georgia. And all of our employees are U.S. based, with one exception. We have one Canadian.
Okay. We have one Canadian. Well, yeah, you guys are nice at least, that's the old adage. Okay. Well, that is cool. And how many employees did you say you had?
We have
I'm
25,
curious.
and we
Sweet.
compete
Okay.
against
You've got a firm.
we compete against big companies. And one of our superpowers is that we don't have account numbers. We know you by your name, and we're sort of small, southern, and charming, and that's what you need to be if you're going to compete against billion-dollar publicly traded companies.
Winston said charming. I love it.
Yeah.
That was good. That's what it is. But yeah, no. And Winston, I found that to be true when I met you at Indie Tech. They say I found you to be very down to earth. I mean, and one of the reasons why we wanted to do this is because you have a story, which I think you've been able to tell pretty well here. I didn't know that there was a difference between what used to be and what is now, right? And so that's why when you or I were talking at Indie Tech, I'm like, well, shit, this is industry needs to know this kind of stuff. So that's what this is all about. So I greatly appreciate it. Anything else out there that you want to say to the independents? Anything that maybe it be some advice on what you've learned on starting a business, or you want to tell us how terrible we are as business people on the decisions we make on our communication systems? Or
No. I mean, I'm, as you can tell, very complimentary of agents in general. But if I'm going to paint agents with a broad brush, is that they're actually accidental entrepreneurs. So once upon a time, I'm going to describe a typical agent's journey. They worked at a captive, right? They're State Farm or farmers. Turned out they were pretty good at selling insurance, and they thought, well, I can go out on my own and do this and control more things and, keep more of the commission to myself. And they go out there, and turns out they're great at it still. They're still good at selling insurance, actually so good that they actually need to grow as a business, and they need to start hiring people, right? And so that's where it got complicated. And they're like, hey, I only really signed up for this for the selling insurance piece, the hiring of people and legal and accounting and operations and tech. Like, I don't want that stuff so much. And so they sort of found themselves in this position where they became the bottleneck in their business's growth. And I think for them to remove themselves as the bottleneck in their growth for their future is their need to adopt technology, right? If you want to be able to grow in the future and extricate yourself from the process of growing the business, you need to be able to utilize systems and workflows so that you can focus on what you're good at, which is bringing in new business and keeping that new business and letting technology do the rest. So think less about trying to manage it yourself, which is not your superpower, and play to your strengths, which is selling more. So that's why Bridge is here, is to help agents get out of that sort of area where they find themselves struggling to grow. And it's not because they can't sell insurance. It's because of the operational constraints.
The operational constraints. Loyal listeners, just I think it was, I don't know, he spoke there for 2 minutes. Just back it up and listen to that shit again, because you spoke so good there, Winston, about so many things that have to do with, it's about the systems and it's about the workflows. And agents have just been able to get away with it forever. But the thing is, your business really idolizes the potential for growth. And let me give you an example of what I'm saying by that. So if it was 1988, I don't know why I said 88. It's in the 80s, it's in the 90s. And you want to create a telephone company and you have to go compete against Southwestern Bell or AT&T or all those old services. I was like nearly impossible, dude. I mean, they've got the market, right? So if I told somebody in the 80s and 90s that there's going to be this company, and I'm just going to say them, there's this Vonage company because everybody knows them nationwide, whatever. And you're going to be able to be a company of 20 people, 25, 50 people, and be able to open up and compete with them and be able to take their market share. There's people in the 80s and 90s that would be like, that doesn't make any sense. How would that be possible, let alone in the future when there's more technology needed and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But it's allowed it to do it because your system, yes, is a scalable system, but it also allows for businesses, because there's a lot of businesses like yourself that just aren't going to make it because they don't have the systems, they don't have the processes. And I see this a lot, Winston, that when we say that we're trying to grow and we're trying to make our agency big, if we look at big companies that we idolize, I ask agents a lot to ask themselves this question. Do you think that the business got big and then they decided to make some processes? Or do you think that they created some processes and that enabled them to get big? Because I think everybody kind of knows that answer, right? And it's like, when you think about that, now, why is that more important? It's more important even today because we look and say to ourselves, like, I can compete with Geico. I can compete with State Farm, like you with the Vonages, right? But in order for that to do that, you have the ability now to compete with those, but you better have the system and processes in place as well to be able to compete with those, or you're going to get ran out. And I think that that's what you're saying. But one of the things that's most methodical about you, Winston, is that I wrote down here, a lot of it's accidental, but not you, right? That's what I wrote here. And I was meaning that from you because it was so strategic how you knew you liked insurance agents. You knew you needed to scale. So you knew you needed technology. And like, you literally had this checklist of who you were looking for. And I think that that was so impressive. That was one of the coolest things about it. It's because I think what's important is if you're a Bridge customer, you're owned by somebody who was specifically looking for you. And it took 2 years, but they found you. Right? That's a pretty cool thing, man. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's what I pulled out of this.
Appreciate you saying that. But you're exactly right. Yeah. Technology is what lets David compete with Goliath, right? Because you've got these big carriers out there, which agents, they are scared of, but they shouldn't be. The Geicos and the whoever else out there. I love the expression, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Look what happened to Liberty Mutual's captive sales force, went independent. Look at Geico trying to get local offices. They think, oh, local's the solution. No, that's not the solution. Can't be friends with a gecko. Agents will continue to grow and they will continue to command more market share. So it's people, smart people have been predicting the demise of independent agents since the 80s, and it couldn't have been more wrong.
That's right. And when the more technology comes along, it only increases, it enhances us, right? Makes us better. Makes our customers better. Winston, appreciate you being here on agency intelligence, agents influence, I should say. But I do greatly appreciate it. So thanks for joining us. If anybody wants to find out from you, they can probably find you on LinkedIn. They can find you out there in the world. You're usually going to a lot of these events. So if you get a chance, stop by, talk to Winston. As you know, you just listened to him for the last 24 minutes. Pretty cool guy. Got a really good vision. I love people that have things figured out. And I'm not saying you got the world figured out. You'd be the first not to admit that. But to be able to check mark and say, this is what I want, and then you get it, that shows a lot of commitment. Greatly appreciate that. Loyal listeners, you know what I do because I do it for you. Tell me your thoughts and tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. This has been Cass. He's Winston, and we are out.